All right, so the recording has started, and the first candidate, Jeremy, for the position of Vice President Corporate Relations. You have 3 minutes if you would like to tell us about yourself.
Hi, everyone. I hope you're doing well tonight. A little about myself. Before I came to UVic, I was a chef for 15 years. I feel this has really helped me with this whole concept of corporate relations. Last year, when I worked in this position, I put a lot of effort into establishing working relationships with different engineering groups like EGBC and ASHRAE. This coming year, what I'd like to do is take those relationships that I've established and start reaching out to the industry in Victoria. And my end goal would be in the last final semester of my term to be able to host an actual industry night where people can talk and meet and find a way for students to be able to interact with industry on a non kind of cow in the fence way that we do with the events that are hosted at UVic. Something that's just a bit more open and relaxed so that industry people are able to meet students on a level where everyone is comfortable. Because I found that's something that really helps establish relationships and showcase what students are able to do. One other thing I'd like to do is try to arrange more events where students are able to show what they're capable of, and just even if it's competitions or small events where it's, hey, this is what our students have accomplished in a year, and invite industry people to come and see that.
Jeremy, is that okay? Great. Thank you. Are there any questions for Jeremy? He is the only candidate for VP Corporate Relations. All right. Well, if I'm not seeing any, I do have a few questions here prepared just to fill. Well, I guess they're questions that I'm personally interested in, and also to help kind of jumpstart discussion if there isn't any. Oh, but I see Abdul has one.
Yes.
So Abdul.
Over the next year, what is one company or sponsor that you want to make like a relationship with for the ESS? What's your big whale that you'll be attempting to get us?
My big whale right now is Polar Engineering. They're a small startup company in Victoria. I used to work for them, which makes it a little bit easier on my end. I've talked to the owner. He's a young engineer, about 32 years old, and he's expressed interest in helping support a competition. He wants to be able to see what students are able to do. So it's part of where my goals come from. I've seen people who are willing to give money to competitions and in exchange for learning about the students who are able to do what they want.
Great. Thank you, Jeremy. If there are any other questions, please feel free to either pop a 1 or the word question in the chat, as Abdul did, or write out your entire question, and I'm happy to read it out on your behalf. Give it a moment. All right. Seeing none, Jeremy, do you think there's any chance of hosting online events that industry professionals would?
I've tried that throughout the semester, and it's been pretty abysmal as far as who's showed up. I arranged an event with ASHRAE, and we were even giving out gift cards, and only one student showed up to the event. So I'm willing to try to do online events, but it feels like we kind of have to drag the students kicking and screaming to show up, even when there's money involved. So I'm willing to play that one by how other students interact with it. I think that's something I should probably poll the student body if I am elected, and gauge how people are feeling come summer or winter for that matter.
Great. Thank you. I see a question from Jordan. Jordan, would you like to turn your mic on?
Hey, Jeremy. I saw that you were previously the VP Corporate Relations. What would you say was your biggest stumbling, I guess, when you were learning to do the job over the past year?
I think my biggest issue was trying to establish online events, to be completely honest. As much as I tried, I don't know if it was a lack of interest or just not being able to get the word out very much, but there just wasn't the engagement I was hoping for. And that, I feel like that kind of really hurt everyone, even from an industry standard, because people aren't able to see what the students are doing, and the students aren't able to see what kind of jobs are out there. And that just sucks for everyone.
Great. Thank you, Jeremy. Avni, no question, naturally. Okay. If there are any other questions, great. There's one. Ariane, when you're ready.
Do you have any ideas in how to improve student engagement with the industry? How to get people excited about meeting these companies?
This, from personal experience, one thing that I found is meeting owners and employees of engineering firms on a personal basis seems to be a lot more engaging, even if it's going on a tour through the different businesses or having some kind of social event where everyone's able to engage, not as a hopeful student to employer or some kind of job hunt, but just having people interact like we're all people on the same level. I think that it's a good way to show students that finding jobs can be scary, but we're all just people, and the bosses that we're eventually going to work for aren't some crazy scary demon or anything like that. It's just another human that you have to interact with.
Great. Thank you, Jeremy. I will give it a brief minute here for any other questions. But if we don't get any, which I'm not seeing any at the moment, Jeremy, thank you. And we'll call that an end to the questions for VP Corporate Relations. And we can move on to VP Student Life, which has 3 different candidates running. And so I think we can make use of the time there. So Jeremy, thank you. Oh, Abdul, if you have a joke question, I will allow it for Jeremy.
At the last council retreat, you made some delicious potato pancakes and some delicious pulled pork. Will you be keeping that same energy up, or will I have to vote no?
I would like to say that as much as I'm glad everyone enjoyed it, that was a subpar performance on my side. So I would like to step it up even more and provide real food. So if we do have another retreat and that I'm a part of, I think we should do better than last year.
Wow, good answer.
Great. Thank you so much, Jeremy. All right. Transitions on Zoom are a little more, well, I shouldn't say more difficult. I should say I'm not used to doing them than I am, or I'm less used to doing them than I am used to doing them in person. But for the next position, which again is the VP Student Life, we have 3 candidates, which is Avni, Russell, and Ariane. Thank you all 3 for running. How we're going to do this is I have randomized the order in which each of you will be answering questions. And so for the first round, we will ask Avni and then Russell and then Ariane to present yourselves, to talk about who you are and your platform. That will be limited to 3 minutes per candidate. And then when we move into questions, I have a list of different orders that we will kind of iterate through and repeat if needed, because with 3 candidates, there's only 6 combinations of that. Again, you will have 2 questions for each, sorry, you will have 2 minutes for each of the questions. I will be strict on these 2 minutes because we have more than one candidate. I want to keep that fair. What you'll notice is the last 15 seconds of your 2 minutes, I'm going to be counting down. And I'll try and make it clear, but the moment that my arm reaches the horizontal is when your time is up, and I will do my best to cut you off at that moment. Hopefully that's all clear. If there are any questions, please let me know. But otherwise, I will welcome Avni to introduce.
Hey all, so I'm Avni. I'm a 4th year computer engineering student at UVic. A good chunk of you have already met me in person before COVID. Before UVic, I was at SFU. I did an undergrad in math, so I have tons of student life experience and also know what not to do because of SFU. I think the platform position is a bit wide net, as in it grasps a lot of things that just improve student life at UVic. But given what I've been hearing from just, basic comments in Discord and just noticing among my peers, is that mental health should play a big role in 2021 through 2022 year. And I think a good chunk of our events and our resources should focus on that. Currently, we're not providing people with, sexual protection and just other personal items that we would normally provide as part of the VP student life. And that could be focused towards potentially sending care packages or just checking in or creating a checking in method where people that are feeling really down or really upset can come in and connect. Although this may transition, but we could benefit from having something like that as part of the ESSS because of the demanding nature of the degrees, and also given that we've just come out of a place where we feel really isolated and individualized. So that's something I would like to see. I really do support good coffee and muffins, so I would like to keep those too. And I was telling Adil, I get really excited about Costco runs, so I am super excited about more muffins all the time. Other than that, I didn't have much of a time to prepare the entirety of my platform as I was at work all of yesterday and today. So that would be it for me. I will pass it on to the next person.
Great, thank you so much. Russell, you're up next, whenever you're ready.
Can I just get a quick mic check first?
I can hear you loud and clear.
Rock and roll, then we're ready to go. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Russell. I'm a 4th year software engineering student, and I'm currently the VP Communications for the ESS. What really attracted me to the student life role is that there's a big chance for creativity with it. And there's 3 really big things that I want to do with the position and about 1 million small things. I'm going to talk about the really big things first. The really big things I want to do is, first of all, I want to get all of the exams scanned that are in the exam bank in our office and put online. And that's for 2 reasons. One, we don't know whether we're going to be in person or online in any given semester right now. And second, even when we are in person, the office closes. So it would be really good for students to have those resources. Secondly, once we go back to in-person classes, I would really like to start holding weekly ESS social events. It doesn't have to be anything spectacular and high energy, just a night where we keep the office open a little bit later at night. We put out some snacks, we put out some sodas, we throw on a couple of video games or a movie and let people just come hang out. I think that's super important to students, especially after all the isolation of the pandemic. Obviously, we're only doing that if once the time becomes safe to do it, but that's a big thing that I want to do. The third thing that I want to do is I want to help renovate and reinvigorate the area outside and inside of the office to make it a more inviting space, especially the area with the foosball tables. I see a lot of potential for that to become a really cool place for people to just come and hang out during the day. And I'd like to put some work into that and make it a really good space. That's my 3 really big things. Obviously, in this position, I would also be super happy to help out with all the other stuff that the ESS does that I think is super important to students, like Order of Pi. We've got the big first year orientation coming on this year, fingers crossed, hopefully. And I would really like to help out with all of that. Obviously, I wouldn't take on anything that would jeopardize me completing the rest of my responsibilities in this role, like dealing with clubs funding and organizing clubs day and dealing with all the merch and everything. That's pretty much me, my platform. I'd like to thank everybody else that I'm running against. I'm super happy to see more people getting involved in the ESS, and good luck to all. That's for me. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Russell. Ariane, whenever you're ready.
Hey, hi. My name is Ariane. I'm completing my 3rd year of electrical engineering. And I'm gonna take a guess. Most of you know the ESS exists. But people starting at engineering, there isn't much information out there about the ESS. I know when I started, I didn't really know what it existed or like what it did. What does the ESS do for me? I had no idea. Like it took me walking into the office, and even then it was so intimidating. So I think we must increase awareness about the ESS for first year students starting, especially if we're in person, but even if we're not, like that's all important. And the best way to do that would be by having the engineering specific orientation, we've been calling it. If we can make it a welcome week, that would be great. Because what UVic has now is UVic has a first year orientation, and I went to that, and you learn about engineering, but there's a lot of fear mongering. It's just like, oh, you will never make it. Less than half of you will make it through engineering. And like that's not how we want students to feel about engineering. Like we want it to be exciting. And so having like a good welcome week would be fantastic. I want to help make that happen. Another way to like increase engagement is by having more merch. Last year, I don't know when, the new logo, it's pretty new. Jackets were around last year. And I would love to see that on more stuff. Like last year, I remember talking to Abdul and saying, like, I want this on like a magnet or something. And I would love to, if elected, I will look into getting more things printed and then making it available to students. And I think that's super important. And all this will help with awareness of who the ESS is, like get the name out there and make it public of what they do. And that, of course, that includes keeping up with what the ESS currently has. Like, I know there's like the food store and the free slushies and all that, and all the events that we put on, but those aren't, just having these things available isn't worth much if no one knows about it. So we need to get first year students and second year because they're going to be in person for their first time soon now, we need to get them to know about it. And that will be my focus as VP Student Life. Thanks.
Great timing there. Thank you. So thank you to all 3 candidates for introducing yourselves. We'll now go into the questions. The first order for answering the questions, and I'll try and make sure that you know the order that that I expect you to answer in before we ask the question, just so you have a second to prepare yourself if you're first. But the first order will be Russell, and then Ariane, and then Avni. And so we'll go from there. Do we have any questions for these 3 candidates? Again, I will ask that we hold the joke questions back, and that questions are asked to all 3 candidates and not to a specific one.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Jordan, and then Abdul.
Okay. Given that in the past, our student life has been kind of, I don't know how to put this, but the faculty has fought against us being able to communicate well with students, and that's been one of our large issues. How would you solve the issue with the faculty? I know that's a tough question.
It is indeed. Thank you, Jordan. So again, Russell, I will ask that you answer this first, whenever you're ready.
Could I ask for clarification on that?
Certainly.
Sure.
Is there a specific area or?
That's just very, very broad. How do you fix faculty relations for the entire ESS? If that's the actual question, we can go for it. But if there's some narrower chunk of it.
Jordan, is there a
No, it's a pretty general question. Just during my time in the ESS, that's been my experience. So I'm just wondering what you thought about it.
I will ask then that to each of the candidates, you can kind of take that question how you will, but just try and make it clear which question you're answering, because I do think that there's many different areas that you can go with that. But I will allow the question because I do think that it serves the purpose. So Russell, whenever you're ready.
Okay. If I were to run into issues with the faculty where they say, no, we can't do this, or no, we can't do that, I think my first step would be to sit down with the person who said no and try to understand why. If there's a legitimate reason for it, I would really like to work with people. In my role as VP Comms, I got to work a little bit with the faculty when I was dealing with all the server errors. And when you actually sat down and talked with the people, you found out that there was another side to the story and they weren't just all out against us. And generally, in my experience, when you sat down and talked to them and heard them out, they were more than willing to say, they even suggest, hey, you really can't do that, but we can help you do this other thing that's just as good. And I would really like to initiate conversations like that. I think that would go a long ways to helping repair relations with the faculty, and also go a long ways into us getting some things done that we've really wanted to do for a long time. I would start there to answer the very broad question. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Russell, and thank you for taking first crack at a broad question. I recognize that. So next, again, Ariane, whenever you're ready, you may begin.
So how to communicate and talk to the faculty? I think I would work with the council as a whole, because like the council has a role. Is it the VP internal that works, that is like meant to be that have that communication with faculty members? Yeah, and so working with, I guess, Alex, if she's elected, I would talk to the faculty and figure out, similar to what Russell said, like figure out why or what's happening, and really, I would use the resources of the council, because there's a lot of people in the council who have better relationships with the faculty than I do, because I don't have that experience there, but I know that the council has it, and the people, there will be good people that I can talk to and get help from to do that, to talk to the faculty. That's how.
Great, thank you. Avni, of course.
So I'm kind of lucky in this situation because I have a good working relationship with the secretary of the dean's office, and I was the VP for Rex for about a year and a half. And what I learned there was you don't want to ask for permission. You want to come up with an entire plan and present it. And you want to say, hey, look, I want to do this. How do I do this? Do you have an opposition? So you involve them once you have a little plan, but they are part of the planning committee. So, or not a committee, but you involve them in the planning process so they can drive some of the things. And in that way, they get some ownership into what's being presented, and that gets them on board. You're buying they're on board by getting them involved, because the events need to happen. The students still need events and social life needs to happen, but you have to sell it to them early on so you can iron out the details. And once they are involved in the process, you've sold it to them. You really just have to make sure that, you resolve conflict as early as possible so that the event can be shaped out clearly. And there is still a conflict as where you can't do something. We can look at alternative events that can achieve the same goal and come up with that by brainstorming again with the faculty and say, hey, look, I wanted to achieve this. if I cannot do X, can I do Y to achieve the same goal? But what do you think Y would look like for it to be approved by faculty? So you can even get their input and see if they can recommend something that they find is successful. Sometimes they want something out of the event themselves, and they might end up giving you a good idea. So I think that'd be an approach I would take.
Great. Thank you all for those answers. So we do have another question in chat from Abdul. Abdul, whenever you're, or sorry, I promised I would try and give you the order that you will answer in first. So the next order is going to start with Ariane, and then be Avni, and then be Russell. Abdul, if you would give us your question when you can.
Yeah, so the ESS for the past while has been looking at redecorating the student lounge area and the area outside of like the foosball tables and stuff to make it more welcoming and accessible to students and like more of a hangout area. Do you have any ideas for what we can do with a space like that?
Great. Thank you, Abdul. So again, up first, Ariane, whenever you're ready.
Do I have ideas for what we'll do with that space? I think the idea of transforming it is a fantastic idea. It's definitely not somewhere I've gone much. Like, it's just kind of a tucked out of the way area with a couch. So probably adding just possibly more couches or like a screen. So it could be like a place to have movies. Could be fun. And almost extending it as part of the office. So you have the office, which is more office-like, and then have that outside the office be more of the hangout place. Because right now, a lot of people, well, a year ago, people would hang out in the office, but there wasn't as much outside. So more of just extending the office out, I think would be great.
Great, thank you. And so Avni, you're up next whenever you're ready.
I really like that question. I think I found the ESS because I had friends in the ESS. But the biggest thing the office would need is like, it needs to scream it's an ESS office rather than, just a good old regular office. The way the outside is currently set up is just big shelves and it doesn't scream up in your face, hey, I am the ESS office, come on in. It needs to really do that. And we have some really cool art inside the office, like the t-shirts that we could potentially have posters made up of and put outside if allowed. And then we could also have just little like pictures and tokens and create like a wall of just ESS highlights where people can come and catch up. So instead of hoodies and merch being in a simple closet, we could just kind of spruce it up with fun things like people wearing the merch, perhaps. So it's more attractive and it speaks like I am the ESS office and like you can come in and we're friendly rather than I'm just a good old office. The foosball area probably is very not inviting because nobody really hangs there unless you have a lab and you know the people in the ESS. And the biggest thing to do there would be to just tell more people by word of mouth or organize events around that or be like, hey, we're doing a foosball and Pac-Man night or we're hanging out around here and just raise more awareness to that area. So people tend to use it more outside of just, who knows. So I think that'd be the biggest thing to do there. You want to make it more attractive.
Great, thank you. My list system isn't great, but Russell, you're up last for this question, whenever you're ready.
Thank you. So the way I see it, we want more people to hang out there. So I'm going to look at a couple of things that make people want to hang out somewhere. The thing that draws a lot of people into the ESS office every morning is the coffee. I would move the coffee machine to outside. We can bring it in at night and make sure it doesn't get stolen. That's easy. But that would bring a lot more people around, especially when they're like, I smell coffee as they're just walking by. And then I would set up the space so that it's, once you're there, drawn in by the sweet, sweet, luscious smells of coffee, that you want to just hang out. I would get rid of the super greasy couch that's hanging out there. I would just put that in a dumpster. I would get a couple of tables that people could sit down at and do a little bit of work and talk to each other while facing each other, and see if I can set up something nice on the walls that screams ESS. I know we have the inside office wall painted with a big picture of Victor, I think it is. I haven't been there in a year, so I don't really remember, but I would like to organize some stuff like that and make it a little bit more inviting. I'd also get rid of the weird sheet metal pool table ranking board that was there. It's like, it's cool, but it's not inviting. I would put up some nicer stuff. Yeah, that's, with only 3 minutes to think about it while everybody else answered, that's my first thoughts.
Great. Thank you, Russell. Thank you all three again. We have another question in the chat from Alexandra. Alexandra, would you like to turn your mic on?
Hello, I'm getting ready while I listen to you guys, sorry. So my question is, what are your plans for mental health services within the position? Do you have any specific initiatives that you'd like to put through with that?
Great. Thank you. And I broke my promise. I'm sorry. The order I have for the next question is Russell, Avni, and Ariane. I'm going to just stall for about 5 seconds here to give Russell a chance. But Russell, when you're ready, you're up. I apologize
No worries.
for that.
So the first thing that I think is going to help mental health a little bit is the social nights that I was talking about. I think that hanging out with friends helps people's mental health a lot, or at least it does mine. And then another mental health thing that is one of the million small things that I want to accomplish with this position is I would like to bring in some people that are actually mental health professionals and bring them in and organize a couple of talks for people for everyone to come and listen to and just discuss mental health in this position. I know as engineers, the workload is super straining on us, and I would like to hold that at least once a semester. That's
great. Thank you. I just put that in chat. I hope the other two candidates saw. I'm sorry. I think I forgot to announce the rest of the order. So it's Avni and then Ariane. I apologize for that. Avni, when you're ready.
I do agree with Russell in the fact that we could bring in more people for workshops, but I think we need to address what's lacking at UVic, which is our own UVic's counseling services. So we could potentially just bring them on and say, hey, look, you can't ghost people. So that'd be probably the first thing I address, because a lot of people, when they're stressed, go to them. So I'd want to fix that issue first. Then the second thing is I kind of want to set up workshops that help people learn how to better balance school/social life, because that's where the stress happens, either through procrastination or through material being really hard. And I think workshops went out of reach because COVID. It could also be like providing a space where, or a dedicated time or area where you can go and do something, which alleviates the thing of I'm doing it alone, or I am doing it by myself, or this is really hard. But if a bunch of people show up and all of them are powering through and all of them are struggling together, the struggle just seems easier. So I'd want to probably invite more collaborative attitude. And that could be just setting up as, hey, it's the ESS study hour in this building or whatever from 5 to 7, and everybody can show up, bring their books, and it doesn't matter who you end up sitting with, you just sit together and work. That's all.
Great, thank you. Ariane, you're up next whenever you're ready.
Hey, those are all great ideas. My first thought was having, like, what would be simplest and probably quickest to implement would be having some sort of events, possibly weekly, which would be similar to what Avni described, where people come by and have it probably be mostly casual, like a casual get together, but be very open to talking about mental health, so people can talk about things they're struggling with. And then having at these events also provide the resources or like give resources to what people can do if they need more help. But certainly just that first social, like increase that social part where people are talking to other people. Well, I think all that will help a lot.
Great. Thank you. So we have another question in the chat. This one is from Jessica. Jessica, whenever you're ready, feel free to turn your mic on.
Hi guys, can you hear me?
Can we get the order first?
Yes, thank you, Russell. So for the next, to answer this question, we will have Avni, and then Ariane, and then Russell. Thank you for the reminder.
I'm sorry if this question is kind of broad and confusingly worded, but you guys obviously, like, running for student life, your goal is to improve like student engagement, engineering community, and culture and stuff like that. I was wondering if you had like one key that you guys think that you have to do in order to sort of kickstart into getting more of an engineering culture at UVic. Sorry if that's kind of a daunting question.
So just to make that clear, Jessica, is the question, what's the most important one thing that you would do to jumpstart to improve the culture around the Faculty of Engineering? Is that the question?
Yeah, like what's probably your like this key idea that you think we have to start doing?
Okay. Is that question clear to the candidates?
I think so.
Yeah, sorry, it's kind of broad.
No, I think that's a good question. I just want to make sure that it's clear. Okay. If so, Avni, I will ask you to give the first answer whenever you're.
I agree. That's a great question. I think I'd want more events, but I think we've already established the events tend to have low turnout rates. So we need to make them more attractive. I think I'd bring in pizza events more often. They tend to attract a lot of people. And those events can range from a variety of things, which let a person in a student life position address anything like a safe space for hanging out, mental health issues seminars, or just mental health breaks, like health breaks. Can also be like a collaborative event where people can compete. So more events that are attractive to people so we can drive a larger turnout, because there's no point in having a welcome week if we can't drive people to it, which is something we struggle with. So I think it'll have to be focus on what drives people and then host the events around them.
Great, thank you. So up next, Ariane, whenever you are ready.
When I came up with my platform, the main focus that I had was on engineering merch. I really think if we just put our logo on everything, maybe not to the extreme, but have it be available and like have it on water bottles and various like stickers or various things, then that will improve the engineering community, because we'll feel like we are a part of something because everyone will have that, especially because I love the logo. It shows like all the engineering disciplines, and like I just love how it shows like all of the engineering at UVic, but in like one circle or a line, as just getting more merch with that logo and making it available. And like if there's like small things, it could be free, or just have them like be available, like cost affordable, then that, to me, that would help with the sense of community, and that would bring people together in that way.
Great, thank you. Russell, you're up next.
So that is a very daunting question for two reasons. One, building a community where not much of one exists. I don't want to say that necessarily, but making it so much bigger is a really, really big thing. And I think the number one thing that you need to do that is you have to have constant engagement. That's why I think that events that happen weekly, even if they're a little bit smaller, would be a lot more effective than big events that happen semesterly. Even better than that would be things that are going on the daily, but that's a really big ask for a lot of engineering students, you know, to get engagement daily when we all have exams and midterms. So I think weekly events, even if they're not really big things, but enough that draw out a crowd, are really, really important. And I would say just constantly hitting the hammer with that would be the one thing that we need to do more of.
Great. Thank you for that answer. All right. So I don't see any questions currently in the chat, so I'm going to take this as a chance to ask my own question. And so I guess it's kind of a two-part question, but I hope that it's easy to follow. So part one is, there's been quite a bit of conversation already during this debate about the idea of hosting.
The answer order.
Sorry. Thank you for being on that, Russell. So the order for the next question is Ariane, and then Russell, and then Avni. Thank you. All right. So to the question, there's been quite a bit of discussion around holding a larger first year orientation week, welcome week, something of that theme. And however, we are in the middle of a pandemic. And so the question is do you think that hosting a large event in early September is something that's worth pursuing, given that we don't know how the public health orders will be at that point? And then as a follow-up, depending on your answer there, when would it be appropriate? Or, sorry, how would you run a large-scale event like that? What would be your priorities for making a large-scale event attractive to first-year students? Is that question clear? I can repeat it a little more succinctly if necessary.
I would be really happy with some repetition.
Okay. So one, do you think that it's worth focusing to make an event, a large-scale event, happen in September? And two, in some future where we can have a large-scale first-year event, whenever that is, what would you do to make it attractive to first years? What things would you see in a large-scale event like that? Hopefully that's clear. I'm open to any clarification. But otherwise, I will ask Ariane to answer whenever you're ready.
Okay, so first was,
do you think it's worth putting in the time to try and run a large-scale event?
is it worth it?
Sure? Yeah, when you're not sure if it's gonna be successful.
Like for this September?
Yes, sorry, for this September.
I think even if for the reasons it's not able to be in person in September, it's still worth putting in the effort now, because one day it will be in person. Even if it's not this September, it could be next year. And we should still put in the work to have it happen next year, and make it so that it can happen subsequent years. This is not a one-time thing. We want this to happen every single year. And then second, how to make it attractive. I mean, one really good way is free food. That's a way to get people in. And then just having it, having booths or whatever, having stuff up where students are walking, probably in front of ELW or something, or in the lobby there, having it be out there so that they will know it's happening just because they see it on their way to class. And then also posters and social media, and trying to get, there is the UVic welcome, trying to get them to talk about it a bit would also be a good way. We can get them to advertise for us maybe. I think I think it's definitely possible to get first year students to be excited about learning more about engineering at UVic.
Great, thank you. Russell, you're up next whenever you're ready.
Okay, so to answer the first part of your question, I think it's absolutely important that we do this now. For two reasons. One, I'm a firm believer that planning is everything and plans are nothing. So make the plan, but be flexible to change it. That's super important to me, and I think it's been super important during this pandemic. So even if it doesn't get to go online or in person this September, I think it's a worthwhile endeavor, because as Ariane said, one day it will be in person, and even this September, we could try to hold something digitally with what we figured out. To answer the second part of your question, I don't have any direct ideas right now, but I'll tell you how I would approach it. How I would approach it, because I've never been to a first year orientation, and I've never organized one, is I would work with our VP External and work with other delegates from across the West, the Western Engineering Student Society, whatever T stands for. And I would find out how they did it and what really works for them and what really doesn't work for them and what they've tried and all of that. And I would really just try to stand on the heads of those giants that have done all that hard work for us and do my best to implement everything that they recommend. That's how I would approach it. What their answer is depends entirely on what I do.
Great, thank you. Avni, when you're ready, you're up next.
I have to completely agree with them. It is extremely important to organize and plan for an event for September. It may not be a large crowd at once, but it can be a large scale event where we can segregate events so people can RSVP in advance, and then we can have smaller crowds come in and enjoy the event versus a large crowd all at once. And I think UVic would potentially get on board with that because they already have small scale classes running face-to-face and labs running. And that's totally doable, even if nothing changes till September. But in grand scheme of things, we could have larger people show up and increase the availability for those things. Now, to answer the second part of your question, I think Russell's extremely right. It has to be a team effort, or for two reasons. One, you get a lot of creative ideas from a lot of people, and in software it's called rubber ducking. You get a lot of different eyes on something, and you get to use a lot of expertise. But second, it's also a great place for the other VPs to show off what they have to offer the students, and the students actually get to know, hey, this particular resource exists. I can take advantage of that. For example, a VP External could be like, hey, I have these conferences, and it could be a conference themed event where people talk about it. Different roles also sort of help us diversify different people's interests. We could have a game night or game thing, and we can also have like something that's more technical or more show off your skills by a mini hackathon. You throw a wide net to grab as many people, and that attracts a lot more people, and free food always helps. So I think that'd be the way forward. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Alexandra has another question, but we are rapidly approaching the end of the time slot that we have. So I'm gonna ask Alexandra, can the question be answered in about 20 seconds by each candidate? Is it a short question or a very long one? All right, let's hear the question, and we'll try and get some speed.
Okay, also, answers. I'm really sorry my spacebar does not work, which is why everything, okay, yeah, it is, it's broken. Okay, so my quick question is, you guys are all really awesome, and you seem very passionate about what you're talking about. If you were to not be elected, are you hoping to be a part of the ESS and help make some of these initiatives that you've talked about come to life?
I feel like
yes,
I'm actually not gonna ask this question to the candidates. I think that it would bias voters if somebody says like they're super willing to do it regardless of I think that's an awkward question.
That's
I'm sorry,
fair. It's
Alexandra.
okay.
I understand the spirit and I appreciate it, but yes, hopefully the candidates are all right with that. Okay, so we have come to the end of the time slot for the Vice President Student Life candidates. Thank you to all three of you for making the time to be here. We will now continue with the VP Communications, for which we have one candidate, which is Victor. And so Victor, I'm going to give you 3 minutes to introduce yourself and your platform if you would like, whenever you're ready.
All right. Mic check. Can everyone hear me?
Yes, we can.
Awesome. All right, everyone. My name is Victor. As of right now, I'm a second-year software engineering student. Currently, you may know me in the ESS as the co-newsletter editor, or potentially you might know me on the UVic Engineering Discord server as one of the moderators. So that's a little bit about me, I suppose. So my goal as VP Comms is to not only improve on the contributions by previous VPs, but also to provide a seamless job of communicating between all the connected roles. I want to employ my skills in programming and graphic design to keep them looking sleek and modern and bring them up to date with how everything should be looking nowadays. So a few of points of interest that I had in mind would be to revitalize the YouTube channel and improve the quality of the videos, utilizing graphic design software to improve the look of announcements and events and give them a more updated look, maybe make them stand out a bit more. And then more extensively supporting resources such as the newsletter team and assisting them in overhauling the look, improving clarity and emphasizing contents, and potentially also improving the website as well. So yeah, that's all from me.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions directly for Victor? Looking at you, chat.
My entire keyboard is broken, so if I have questions, I'm just going to hold up a finger.
Okay, I'll try and keep my eyes open for you. Russell, what is your question?
I'm just wondering what Victor thinks the most effective method of communicating with the student body will be and what he's going to focus on via Discord or Facebook or the website or what have you.
Great. Victor, whenever you're ready, you have 2 minutes.
Sure. So with communicating with the students, obviously we're going to see a transition from online to in-person in the upcoming year. So at the given moment, obviously utilizing social media to its fullest, utilizing Instagram, Facebook, Discord, however many platforms we can possibly use to let everyone know what we're doing, essentially, is very important. But then as we transition into an in-person environment, I believe that making more use of word of mouth or potentially posters, etc., is also going to have an important role in making sure that students know what's going on, letting them know what kind of events are being held, and so on and so forth.
Great, thank you. So we have another question from Abdul. Abdul, when you're ready.
I forgot that I put the one in there and I forgot the question. I apologize.
All good. If there are more questions, please put them in the chat. If not, I will take, great. Alexandra, whenever you're ready.
Kind of a joke, but also not a joke. Is graphic design your passion?
Yeah, I suppose it is.
All right. I think that answers the question.
Yeah.
Abdul has another question in the chat. So Abdul,
Yeah, I guess if we're doing joke questions, this is a very important question, one that we do need to know about. What are your thoughts on the Oxford comma?
I'll be honest. I sometimes forget it exists, and sometimes I use it. So it's kind of a wild card. You 50-50.
Great. Thank you. I'm going to ask a serious question before I open the floor properly to joke questions. How do you think about using in-class announcements to advertise for the ESS in terms of, are there things that work well for it and are there things that don't? And do you see a difference between in-person in-class announcements and on Zoom in-class announcements? Happy to clarify that question if it's complex.
Could I get a little bit of a clarification?
Yeah. The ESS for many years, at least when I was involved, I frankly don't know the recent history of this, has used in-class announcements, having people go up and stand in front of classes to say, hey, event X is happening, you should show up. I guess, do you have a view on if that's effective or not? And do you have a view on if that is better done in person than on Zoom, or if they're roughly equivalent? And you're more than welcome to say you don't have an opinion on either because you haven't seen it. But.
Yeah, so with in-person announcements, I personally believe that those work better because unlike Zoom, where you have kind of either the lecture would be recorded or potentially people won't be paying a lot of attention, you might see that you don't get quite nearly as high of a turnout based on if people decide to skip or not. Whereas in an in-person environment, you kind of have more presentation in a sense, because you're physically there and you're talking to everyone, you're more so demanding their attention. And so I believe that in person would result in more people taking part in an event or something happening, simply because there's physically a person there telling them to do this thing.
Great, thank you. We do have a question in chat from Alexandra. Whenever you're ready.
Actually, sorry, you answered my question. It was kind of in relation to Eric, so that's perfect. Thank you.
Okay, great. I don't see any other serious questions, so we do have time for a joke question if someone would like to offer one.
Who is your biggest inspiration?
Just in general? Ooh, okay. Tricky question. I would say my biggest inspiration would probably have to either be my dad or my uncle, because my dad is also in software engineering, and he has kind of gone into the game industry, and he's been doing it for many years, and now he's sort of said, you know what, video game development is great and all, but I'm more interested in looking towards other topics such as AI and computer vision and etc. And so now he's sort of in the middle of his career, just halting his current career and then completely taking a dive into something new and interesting. I personally find that very inspirational, just because of the kind of the courage, I suppose, needed to pull something like that off.
Great, thank you, Victor. We've now reached the end of the time slot for VP Communications. So again, I appreciate you making the time for this tonight. We will now move on to the position of Equity Officer, for which we have one candidate, Callie. Thank you for joining us, Callie. So as with the other positions, I will be giving you 3 minutes to introduce yourself and your platform, and then we will turn to questions from the audience. So whenever you're ready, you may begin.
Hey, hello everyone. Can you hear me?
We can.
Sweet.
Yes.
Okay. I'm Callie. I am a second year software engineering student. I became also the software engineering, one of them, there's two of them, one of the software engineering student representatives at the beginning of this academic year. I was motivated to do so after seeing much fewer women around me in my engineering courses in my first year than I thought I would. I did come from a very diverse secondary education, so it was a big shock for me, and I wanted to, I was very motivated by that, and I wanted to make a difference. So after that, as a next step, I became the council secretary for this semester. It was really fun. I learned a lot about the structure of the ESS, and after going to Calc also this semester, Abdul got me into policy, and I've been just really enjoying it. And I really want to move into the equity officer position in order to be able to make more of a change than I was able to in my other positions. The changes that I would like to see, I would like to increase diversity in engineering at UVic, specifically by increasing the diversity of people applying. So a policy that I've been working on with the help of Abdul and others is the Director of Outreach position. So the intent of this position would be to go to secondary education, both continuing education, distance education, and a regular high school, and try to excite students about engineering and get them interested in it, and to be focusing on underrepresented students, female, BIPOC, LGBTQ plus students. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I will now open it up to questions from the audience. Are there any? Alexandra, whenever you're ready.
Yeah, are there, as we kind of hopefully this year transitioning back to in-person classes, are there any specific things that you would like to look into in making our kind of in-person events more inclusive?
Yeah, I think how we advertise our events can have a big impact on obviously who shows up. So if we're focusing on advertising these in communities that we know are designed for underrepresented students by going to WEX, Women in Engineering and Computer Science, and groups like this, maybe Leadership Through Diversity, and getting them to also advertise our events and try to get out there and make sure that all of our engineering students are seeing it.
Great, thank you. Are there more questions from the audience? Ayla, whenever you're ready.
Awesome. I'm not sure if everyone here has heard of Science Venture. It's UVic's nonprofit organization that works in delivering STEM to Vancouver Island's youth. So they have a direct line with all the kids that would hopefully be coming into UVic's engineering program. My question is, would you work on increasing communication with Science Venture and ties to help share your message for increasing UVic's engineering students through them? Would you consider partnering with them?
Absolutely. At this point, we're definitely considering a few routes of doing this. I know that we've considered actually directly contacting some of the school boards and having them advertise events for us so that it is coming from a trusted source. But also something like Science Venture, like that would be a trusted source for them. So that would be a great avenue. And if it's already sort of in motion, then that would be great. And I was not aware of that. And I'm actually really glad that you brought that up. I'm going to look into that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I will point out, just because I think this is a rarely known fact in engineering, but the Engineering Student Society played a large role in getting Science Venture up and running in 1991, which I was really interested in finding out about when I did. Are there any other questions from the audience? Abdul, whenever you're ready.
As we are working on orientation being a thing, there is a general community of arrogant first years that seem to come to engineering every year, and we all know the like stereotypes of like engineers that are elitists that like attack other people from other faculties for no reason. How would you work on like trying to remove that very bad parts of the engineering community from students that come to UVic?
Okay, I just want to clarify, and you mean like specifically in terms of, you said of first week welcome sort of thing?
Yeah,
Or
how
just
would
in
you
general?
like how would you integrate that into the first year welcome?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so first I would like to say that I think that they should be ran with the intention of creating, I feel like students are already excited about being there and going to the orientation, they're excited and the whole thing's going to be exciting. So I think that rather than like really trying to hype people up and like getting this like hyper vibe going on, I think that it would be beneficial if it was more of a chill sort of like everyone's here and it's okay if you're uncomfortable. Everyone's uncomfortable right now, and I think if even like some of the first activities are sort of creating, I know that a lot of people don't like to speak up right away, but if we give them the chance to, the opportunity, and say if you would like to share your story and your experiences and like why you're passionate, why you came here, I think that we would get a diverse range of students speaking on what really motivated them to come. And then I think that would bring into perspective for those students that you were talking about who are a bit, let's say obnoxious, maybe this isn't the right word, but it might get the perspective across to them, what it's like for the other students around them who are less so.
Great, thank you. Thank you both for the question and for the answer, Kelly. We have another question posted in chat that I will read out. Thank you, Dominique, for that. The question is, High Tech U is an initiative by the Electrical Engineering Department. Would you consider also involving them as they have a direct connection to youth interested in engineering? So I guess similar in concept to the science venture question in some regard. Callie, when you're ready.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I'm at this point, I know what the position is trying to do, and we have some ideas of events that it could run. And so, yeah, now is looking at sort of organizations to partner with and help us do this. So I'm absolutely willing to look into anything that anyone suggests. This one particularly, if it's run by the Electrical Engineering Department, obviously that's very relevant. I think it would be, yeah, a great resource to use. I don't see why not.
Great, thank you. All right, I don't see any more questions in chat. We are rapidly approaching the end of the time slot for this position. I'll just ask what I hope is a very quick question. What is one thing that you think the ESS should stop doing?
That's a really good question. I think that I don't know what like one particular thing it is, but I do think that there is some sort of clickiness. I don't think that it's actually clickiness, but I think it can be perceived as clickiness from the outside. So I think if we stop using like inside jokes in situations where we know that there are a lot of people who are not from the ESS or a lot of first years, maybe sort of that sort of just consideration when we're interacting with each other.
Great, thank you. I think that's a wonderful answer. So that's it. We're at the end of the time slot for this position. Callie, thank you so much for making the time this evening. We will now move on to the position of VP Events. Again, we have one candidate for VP Events, and that is Ayla. So Ayla, I will ask that you give us an introduction just about yourself and your platform. You have up to 3 minutes whenever you are ready.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. I'm Ayla. First, I want to thank all of you for taking your time to come out today. I know it's really hard to pull yourself away from studying or any work you have to do, so I really appreciate it. A little bit about me. I'm in my second year of civil engineering, and right now I'm currently the civil student rep. So that has been really exciting for me to get involved with the ESS in that way. My first little dip into the ESS was helping out with the Iron Ring ceremonies last year. And I think that's such an important event for the ESS and to show that we have such a big part in our engineering community. I'm also working with the ESS right now as the VP of sponsorship for EGMAR, which is a really exciting conference that just showcases all that the West Student Societies have to offer. So I'm really excited to hopefully be helping out with events in the ESS. As I've heard from everyone else speaking today, we really lack engagement, and it's something that's really important to push things like corporate relations, student life, and just keep everything in the ESS rolling. So with all the ideas that we've shared, I think we need to build more excitement with first years. Everyone's excited to be there, but then things kind of peter out when we don't really have any events to keep the ball rolling and everyone just gets distracted with their studying. So I'd like to keep events going and create a little bit of a habit for everyone to get out and enjoy being with the rest of the engineering community. I also think with COVID, we've had a really difficult time bringing everyone together. So we've got big gaps in between years and in between disciplines. So some of my goals with events would be trying to create bridges between those years and disciplines. So by having mentor and mentee events and just events that bring in people from different interests. So I've loved seeing the Discord hobby channels come to life, and that would be a great thing I would love to bring into events with the ESS. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Do we have any questions from the audience? I'm going to give it a couple seconds here, but if not, I have one that I would like to ask. All right, I don't see anyone jumping at the bit, so I will. Would you prioritize running more large events? Or sorry, would you prioritize running a few larger events or many more smaller events throughout the year?
That's a great question. I think many more smaller events is definitely the key for our engineering students. So I think lots of the events that I've been interested in, I've missed just because they don't line up with my study schedule or what my plans are. So I think a big issue with our events is making them accessible. And everyone has busy schedules, they can't always make it to everything. So having more opportunities, even if they're smaller, is just a great way to get more students involved and increase engagement.
Great, thank you. Again, if anyone in the audience has a question, please feel free to put it in chat or to give me a wave. I will be trying to pay attention, but I apologize, I sometimes miss those. Abdul has a question. Abdul, when you're ready.
With the events we usually run a whole variety. What is one event idea that you haven't seen the ESS do before that you just want to do yourself this year?
That is a great question. Abdul, as you know, I've just been jumping into the ESS right now. So I think we've just been missing a lot of online events. I've been working with Science Venture for the past 4 months on co-op. So pretty much my job is to engage kids in science and make it fun, which is super hard. So as we've been missing lots of online events, I think that would be my big focus. Not necessarily one event, but just bringing that online platform to life.
Great answer to a good question. Thank you both. If there are more questions from the audience, again, please feel free to put them in chat or give me a wave. Well, I'm not seeing many. If there are more fun questions, I would also accept those at this moment. And if not, I will ask a few myself, but I do see one from Alexandra. Alexandra, when you're ready.
Okay, sorry, this isn't actually fun. So we know that VP events at sometimes can be pretty demanding on your schedule. So I guess I would just want to ask you, how are you going to ensure that these events are happening, and kind of what support systems or strategies do you have in place for ensuring that everything goes according to schedule?
That is a great question. I am personally glued to my phone and computer, so you can text me, call me at any time, and I'm around. So if I forget something, just give me a quick message and I'd be there. I think the VP event position is so tied to all the other council positions. So it's really that whole teamwork that I think would be the key to being successful.
Great, thank you. I encourage the audience to ask questions. I'm sure people will be watching this recording. And so I know that people at least watched it for the president's debate. So I imagine, I should say, that people will be watching the recording. So I encourage us to all ask questions if we have any. But great, thank you again, Alexandra.
So I was told that fun questions are allowed. So how important is EEE to you?
Are you talking about IEEE, or could I get a little bit more information?
It's the engineering evening.
I would like to point out that we are being recorded right now, Alexandra.
That's fair. I was hoping she would know what it was in advance, so we can just omit my question.
I will omit the question just because we have another question in the chat. But for the record, the EEE is the Engineering Evening Excursion, which is a nice euphemism for pub crawl that used to be hosted back when we could do in-person things. So Ariane, whenever you're ready.
My question, I want to ask, to put on these events, I guess do you expect to develop a team, like organize a team to help you put these events on, and how do you expect to go about doing that? Like, how will you gather people?
Awesome, that's a great question. From what I've seen from the ESS Council right now, everyone's super willing to jump on board and help out with other events. So I think not really having a set team, but looking out for people that are interested and wanting to help out is definitely the way to go for individual events.
Great, thank you. There is a comment in the chat that out of the engineering evening excursions comes very good t-shirts. So in terms of merch, we were talking about that earlier tonight. All right, if there are no more questions then for the position of VP events, which I don't see any. So Callie, sorry, wrong position. Ayla, thank you so much for making the time. And we will move on to the position of VP external, for which we have, again, one candidate, and that is Abdul. Abdul, I will ask that you give us 3 minutes about yourself, introduce yourself, your experience, and your platform, whenever you're ready. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Abdul, and I am currently the VP external of the Engineering Student Society. I'm a third-year electrical engineering student. And a member of the mod team for the Engineering and Computer Science Discord server. I am a person who's been around the ESS for 2 years now, and it's been a fantastic time. I've done a lot, I've met so many people, and the main role where I've done a lot and met so many people is VP External. VP External is a position that maintains a lot of the relationships of the ESS with our partner organizations and other groups from on campus to international groups. And I want to really focus on this year on having more one-on-one partnerships with specific universities and specific groups and organizations to do really cool events. So right now, in this term, the term we're in right now, I have started a relationship with the University of Manitoba Engineering Society to help us plan our orientation. I have set up a relationship with the Canadian Federation of Engineering Students and the Western Engineering Student Society team, two organizations that have other engineering societies underneath it, for our Order of Phi charity event, and we raised around $2,000 for charity through that event with the help of our partners. I've done those kind of events, and I want to continue doing more with other universities so we can kind of be able to network with people from all over Canada, as well as maintain relationships with people who happen to be closer by to us than others. Maybe at some point we could have like a good enough relationship with UBC or SFU engineering where we can all have some form of event together where we show off the best of the best from each of our universities or something like that, since they're just a ferry away. Another priority will be to make conferences more accessible to students. VPX goes to a lot of conferences a year and sends students to more. And all the students that attend end up learning so much. A lot of the people who are here have been to conferences and they know that to be true. And I want to be able to find ways to bring that knowledge back and share it with students. As someone who's been a VPX for a bit now, I see that we do need some way of having that knowledge be diluted into some form of like newsletter article or something similar that we can share with students, so we can tell them, hey, this is what we learned this weekend, and this is what you can do to like support diversity in engineering, sustainability in engineering, or become a better leader here at UVic. My last thing is I want to make the University of Victoria engineering competition bigger and better. That might be combining both events into the summer event and the fall event into one, or trying to make two big ones throughout the year with the help of sponsors and industry and the such. I have had built up so many relationships this year with EGBC and with local industry within my role that I want to leverage to make that event bigger and a better showcase of UVic students' abilities in all aspects of engineering. That is my platform. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Abdul. Are there any questions for Abdul? I will ask that any fun questions wait a few minutes here. I would like to try and get some serious questions first. Seeing no one running to the microphone with one, I will ask one myself. Abdul, in your introduction there, you mentioned the University of Victoria engineering competition. And I'm wondering if you think that, and I will ask that you not speak about it under yourself in this coming year, but for the next 5 years, do you think that that event should be under the VP external, or do you think that it should be under the VP events or some other VP? What are your thoughts there?
That's a question I've thought about a lot. It's since the introduction of VP Corporate Relations this year as a new role, or like over the past year, I guess, I've looked at a lot of the VP external portfolio to see what does belong to the VP Corporate Relations and what belongs to other VP positions and what belongs to me. And I think wholeheartedly that the engineering competition falls under VP external. And I think that because the competition is the qualifying competition to the Western Engineering competition. And the rules we do, or our rule book, is based off of the Western Engineering competition rule book, which the VPX gets first. It's the way the events and the competitions that we plan are so close to the events and competitions that other universities plan. And I have had so many experiences working with other universities on helping them with their engineering competitions and them helping me. And it's the way it's set up at other universities, it also falls under the external equivalent. And it just feels like such an easier and more natural thing to work on with other people when they also are doing it at their universities themselves. And so it opens up these lines of communications with other people so much more quickly and so much more like fluently than it would be if it was under VP events or someone else. And while it is directly under the external portfolio, it's still one of the 3 people on the organizing committee for it is the corporate relations, which works on getting sponsorship and stuff like that. So I feel like right now how it is, strongly believe it falls under the external portfolio. Thank you.
Thanks, Abdul. I've been quite lenient on timings for positions with just one candidate, but I do want to make sure that we get to everyone's questions. So we have a question in the chat from Dana. Dana, whenever you're ready.
Awesome, thank you. Given kind of the fact that the CSCU doesn't really exist, and from talking to other software engineering students and computer science students, would you consider possibly making programming competitions its own thing, or maybe it's a more prominent feature in events, as these events are pretty popular among engineering and computer science students?
So yeah, this was a problem we faced this year when we had one team that had a computer science, multiple computer science students want to compete at the regional level after winning the local level. And we were told, unfortunately, no by the Canadian Federation of Engineering Students. Last, I think it was two weekends ago, or yeah, 2 weekends ago, there was the Canadian Engineering Spring Summit, a general assembly held by the Canadian Federation of Engineering Students, where I, along with some other universities, very strongly advocated to allow computer science students to be able to attend the programming competition. We did manage to get it passed, but it falls under the stipulation of they have to be members of the ESS for them to compete in the engineering competition, or in the programming section of the engineering competition. The problem is we can't make it something separate from the University of Victoria engineering competition because it is like qualifiers for the regional competition. And so we have to work with what we're given. And the only way that I can see right now of it working is if computer science students join under the ESS and we have some big ECSSS thing, as we've been joking about it on the engineering career science Discord. I do think that we have a strong enough community to where we could do something like that and have it be very beneficial to all parties and allow computer science students and software engineering students to compete as partners together in the programming competition. Thank you.
Thank you, Abdul. We do have one question from Jordan. I am aware that we're getting close to the end of the time slot for this position. So Abdul, I will ask you to keep your answer brief. But Jordan, whenever you're ready, the question is yours.
Sure. Having been VPX in the past, I know that the ESS spends a considerable amount of money, like upwards of several $1,000s a semester. I guess depending on how many conferences are in the semester, sending students. Do you think we're getting our money's worth? And I guess what would you do to improve us getting our money's worth? Yeah.
A very complicated question, and Abdul, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to ask you to keep your answer to 1 minute.
So the short answer is we are getting our money's worth. Slightly longer answer, I think we can do more to get more out of the money we pay. And that's something that I want to work towards. I know both of you and I have talked together about trying to have like something go into the newsletter, or students write some report or give some presentation after they've done a conference. And that's something I want to really look into, so we can have like use thousands of dollars on sending 8-9 students to a conference, and then justify that by having other people get benefits from the 8 and 9 students who went to that conference.
Thank you, Abdul. So that's all the time we have for the position of VP External. We will now be moving on to the position of VP Finance. We have one candidate for the position of VP Finance, and that is Jordan. And so Jordan, I will ask you to give us 3 minutes about yourself, your experience, and your platform for this position whenever you're ready.
Right. Hi. If you guys don't know me, I'm a 4th year civil engineering student. I'm currently on co-op, working up at the Site C Dam in Fort St. John. I've previously been the VPX of the ESS for a year and 4 months. As well, I was the Director of Corporate Relations before that. During my time as VPX, I did all the normal stuff, ran UVEC, went to all the conferences, etc. So through running UVEC, I have a little bit of experience managing budgets. It's a smaller event, so you don't have to worry about too much. But I went through the process of finding sponsorship, making sure we were in the green and all that. So a little bit about my platform. In my experience, actually, I'm going to start again. I want to increase the financial transparency of the ESS. During my experience, I found that there's a budget presented to students once every semester, and that's it. No one knows where our money's going. No one knows, what their student fees are going towards. So I'm looking at giving a financial report of like, what are our major expenditures during the semesters? Currently thinking about twice a semester on top of the budget, but that could increase depending on the frequency of expenses. Another thing I want to do is increase the amount of money that we spend on events that are attended well and will benefit the largest amount of students possible. I know I can't create money out of thin air, so I would try and work with the VP Corporate Relations and try and get like local companies to sponsor our events, and maybe look around the budget to see if there's more money we could move. Another thing I want to do, we talked a lot about merch earlier in this event, but I'd want to start an online merch store. With COVID, no one's been able to come into our office and see what merch we have to offer and order it. So I think that would be a really good idea. And my final and most boring goal is I want to look into changing the amount of, the financial accounting software we use, as currently it's mostly done on, Google Docs. And I think maybe we might be better served by something else. Thank you.
Thank you, Jordan. We do a very tangible thing right at the end there. Apparently things have changed though since I've been involved.
Me too.
And we have actual accounting software. Interesting. That's good to know. Do we have any questions for Jordan from the audience? Russell does. Thank you. Russell, I'm sorry I missed your wave, but whenever you're ready.
I'm just wondering how you plan to tackle the problem of shipping with the online merch store.
Well, could you be more specific on what the problem with shipping is?
Yeah, I think our current council looked into that early in COVID and decided that because shipping across the province or across the country or across the world, because we have international students, is generally so expensive, it only became worth it to offer online merch when things were high ticket items like jackets. And I was just wondering if you had a solution to that.
As far as keeping costs down, obviously we'd pass some, if not all, shipping costs onto the person that buys it, and we could restrict shipping like within the province or within the country, depending on what would cost less. I assume the closer you are, the less it would cost.
Great. Thank you, Jordan. We have another question from Abdul. Abdul.
I do believe that we have a mandate out for the finance, VP Finance, to look at stuff like T accounts and the such, to make budgeting more granular for like ease of access and for more detailed financial reports about what we're spending our money on. How are you going to work at making stuff more granular and easier to look at? Can you explain more, especially about the like financial reports and stuff like that?
I've had a couple ideas for how I could do financial reporting. We could just have like a simple like Google Sheets list available. Maybe we have it on our website and like a link tree in our Instagram bio. If our VP Communications passion really is graphic design, we could have infographics on how we're spending our money. Yeah, does that answer the question?
Yeah.
Great. Thank you both. I see lots of enthusiasm from Victor there. Do we have any other questions for Jordan from the audience? All right, seeing no one chomping at the bit, I'll take a minute and ask one. Jordan, I think you might have touched on this in your introduction, but I'm wondering if you could be a little bit more explicit about the experience you have, if any, with things like accounting, like with things like T accounts and kind of the modern accounting system. Do you have any relevant experience there?
No, I do not. So my financial experience mostly comes from like, you know, tracking my own spending. I have a spreadsheet I made for myself that, you know, track and categorize everything. As far as running a budget for a student society, I've never done that before.
Well, keeping track of the details is the most important part. How you organize it can just be learned. So yes, I will allow a more fun question, Abdul, if you have one.
So hypothetically, if like half your plants are dead when you come back, how big of a problem will that be?
I don't know. Depends if they've been replaced by the time I got back.
Some of them have been replaced, yes.
If anyone doesn't know, me and Abdul live together while I'm not on co-op. Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Well, thank you both. We are soon to wrap up the time slot for the VP Finance. If there is any last question, I will ask that it is a very short one. But as I don't see any, I'm going to thank Jordan for making the time this evening. And otherwise, we will move on to the last position that we have for tonight, which is the position of VP Internal. So again, thank you, Jordan and Alexandra, the candidate for VP Internal. I will give you 3 minutes, and please introduce yourself to us and tell us about your platform. Thank you.
Awesome. So can everybody hear me okay? Perfect.
We can.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. Thank you for sticking around. I know it's been a long evening, but my name is Alexandra, if you don't already know. And I'm a 4th year biomedical engineering student. And this past year, I had the honor to serve as your president. Obviously, it wasn't what I expected, but I think that we accomplished a lot and we learned a lot through this year. So it was an amazing experience. So recently, I was elected as the chair of the Western Engineering Student Society's team, AGMR 2022. So this is a conference that's held annually. So we will be our UVic will be hosting it in 2022. So with that, I decided to take a little bit of a step back from my president role, but I'm excited to use kind of what I've learned and the faculty relationships that I have built hopefully in my position as VP internal. So moving forward, obviously this has been talked about a lot. We would like to see the return of first year orientation. So this was on my to-do list when I was president, but obviously some things got in the way of that. So this just makes it even more of a priority coming into my VP internal position, is to help see that through. I would also like to see the return of monthly meetings with our co-op office. This used to be kind of something that happened a few years ago, and recently the co-op office reached out to me and said, hey, is this something that we can bring back to make sure we're serving students the best we can? So I think that should be the responsibility of the VP internal to bring that forward. Moving on, obviously I want to support the first year rep and the first year council to hold more first year events, because we all know first year is really hard. So it's good to have those specific events that they can help support each other. And finally, I just really want to help build kind of our academic support for students. So with that, I want to see some more ESS run review seminars for large courses, specifically first year engineering courses. And I also would like to see kind of our exam bank to be improved as well. The ones we have in the office, obviously moving those online and hopefully gaining some more. And then also pushing those tutoring services that our previous VP internal, Jessica, was kind enough to set up for us. So those are my points, and thank you so much.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions from the audience? Great, Abdul, whenever you're ready.
The past year has been rough on students, to say the least. How are you planning to use the VP internal like advocacy powers to make the past year's effects on students kind of longer lasting than they would otherwise be?
Yeah, I mean, that's a really great question. I think we're still in limbo about like where classes are going to be in terms of online and person. Something I didn't mention in my platform actually is I really want to communicate, you know, a lot of us don't like online classes. They're quite different from what we're used to, but I do think that there's an opportunity to see some of the benefits that have come out of that. So specifically like recorded lectures, so being able to go over that material again and seeing what the professor had to say about it versus just reading it in your notes. And also I know this is probably going to be unpopular, but the benefit of open book exams, kind of just taking away that pressure of, oh my goodness, what's the formula? I know what to do after that. Is just, is it squared? Is it not squared? Because I do think that those open book exams, they do show your knowledge versus just, can I memorize this specific thing? So hopefully trying to, you know, bring those benefits forward and trying to alleviate a little bit the academic stress of transitioning from online classes, figuring that out, and then transitioning back to in-person and having to figure that out all over again. Trying to just ease that transition as much as I can.
Great, thank you. Again, if there are more questions from the audience, please just put something in chat or wave, and feel free to just write your question in chat if you would like it read out. All right, but seeing none, I guess that means I get a chance to ask a question, which is always fun. So Alexander, would you talk about how you think the ESS should do faculty relations? And again, that's a very broad question, but I guess I'm just looking for an idea of how you think the faculty would respond to interactions, and how you would kind of recommend the DSS do that. And you can kind of frame that however you would like, I guess.
Oh yeah, thank you. I think with my position as president, initially I kind of saw this faculty as being this big scary thing. And so it was a little bit intimidating to reach out to them. But as the position went forward, I realized how helpful they actually are and how receptive they are to, hey, we'd like some advice on this. Can we have a meeting? Or, hey, can we have a discussion about this? They're actually way more receptive than I think we make them out to be. And so in terms of faculty relation, I think maybe even for a little while, just to make sure we're building that trust, is we check with them on almost anything that's just a little bit iffy, just so that they know that line of communication is open and that we want to make sure that we're doing things that they are comfortable with and we're doing it in the best way we can. That obviously might not be with the teeny tiny things, but I just think communication just is number one. Like anything that we think that we could get the faculty advice on, we should do. And with that, we will start to build that trust and they will say, okay, they're checking with us on everything and they are taking our advice seriously. So obviously these people are accountable and they have our best interests and the students' best interests at heart.
Great, thank you. I think that's a great answer. And then just about everything there, I strongly agree with you. So we have two more questions now. First, we'll go to Ayla whenever you're ready.
Thanks. As a student rep, I've noticed that there's a big divide between the student reps and their peers. So just getting all of their issues to the student rep, because right now we just use an email to connect those groups. And since we're not in person, you can't just walk up to them. So I was wondering if you had any ideas so that students could bring their issues to the student rep before it becomes so dire that they write out an email.
Yeah, for sure. So I know in the past that we've actually had our student reps kind of go to those bigger lectures and those courses saying, hey, just so you know, I am the student rep. If you have issues about your courses or anything that you'd like to discuss with me, please reach out to me. So that obviously kind of disappeared a little bit with online learning. So I think that we should definitely bring it back. Another thing is just, it'd be really nice to implement like information sessions or discussion sessions so people can drop in and talk to you, or if you want to hold a discussion in a big group, kind of having one of those for each of the disciplines and making sure we advertise them really well so that if students kind of want to come in and discuss like, oh yeah, I would like to have that elective available to me, then they're able to kind of just come in conversationally and have this comfortable platform of reaching out versus writing like a formal email or trying to seek out that person.
Great, thank you. All right, so the next question we have is from Russell. Russell, whenever you're ready.
Okay, so I'm a software engineering student and I've found the line very blurry between like software and computer engineering and computer science. And I was just wondering where you draw the line and how you plan to support software and computer engineers, even in some of the more computer science centric classes.
Yeah, I mean, that is a really good question. Obviously, I'm not in any of those disciplines, so I'm a little bit removed, but I think that's definitely been a question we've had in the past of, okay, if a software engineering student's having an issue in this computer science class, like, should we be reaching out to computer science students? And I think in my opinion is if we have engineering students in those classes and they are under the kind of ESS umbrella, is that we should be helping them out and we should be contacting those professors, even if they're from the computer science department rather than specifically the engineering. I think just at the end of the day, I know computer science students unfortunately don't fall under the ESS umbrella currently, but for those software engineering and computer engineering students, if they're in those classes, they're having issues, then I think it's our duty to support them regardless of what that class is. If that answers your question, hopefully.
Great, thank you. We are once more, I guess, finally reaching the end of the time slot for this. If there is one more question from the audience, I will take it, be it a fun question or a serious question. I will give 3 more seconds for a question to appear. But okay, not seeing one. We will wrap this up. To everyone here and hopefully everyone watching this recorded, just a reminder that tonight, which is Wednesday, voting starts at 11:55 p.m. and it will run until 11:55 p.m. Friday night. You can access that at webvote.engr.uvic.ca or through the ESS website. There's links there. And there will be links in your inbox and all over the social medias. So just keep your eyes open and I hope you will be able to find it very easily. If there are any questions, feel free to reach out to me or to anyone on the council, and they can either help you find that or help you get in contact with me. We do have a closing question from Jordan, but I'm going to go out on a limb and assume that it's a fun question. And so I'm actually going to end the recording here. Unless it's a serious question, Jordan, let me know. But thank you all for watching, and I will stop the recording.